Houston will look to retool this season under first-year head coach Tom Herman. Herman, who was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State last year, brings a national championship and an impressive resume with him, as he looks to take the football program, who won 8 games last year, to the next level. And he has a solid coaching staff to help him get the job done, with offensive coordinator Major Applewhite and defensive coordinator Todd Orlando. Herman's specialty up to this point has been quarterbacks, and he'll inherit Greg Ward Jr., who picked up the slack at QB last season after starting the campaign off as a wide receiver. Ward has gone through his first offseason taking snaps under center and should be much more refined in the pocket this season. Ward is a dual threat when the pass game isn't working. He does a lot of work on the ground, recording over 80 yards rushing in 4 games last year. Ward will have a loaded backfield in 2015 with seniors Kenneth Farrow and Ryan Jackson. They average about 25 carries and 127 yards per game. Farrow led the conference with 7 100-yard games last season, and if one of them goes down, there are other exciting backups in the mix. Sophomore Javen Webb and redshirt freshman Khalid Kakuma, and a couple of true freshmen as well. With Ward taking the snaps, the run game could be deadly for the Cougs this season. The bigger plays in the passing game might be harder to come by. DeMarcus Ayers is the only starting wideout returning. Defensively, only 5 of 12 who saw action on the front 7 return. Linebacker Stephen Taylor will be key, as well as tackle B.J. Singleton. But the success of Orlando's new defense will depend on newcomers. If the front 7 is sound, the secondary could thrive. Houston's top 5 defensive backs return, led by safeties Adrian McDonald and Trayvon Stewart. William Jackson is also a corner that could leave his stamp in the conference this season. Houston led the nation in takeaways in 2013 and finished 11th nationally in 2014 with 30 turnovers forced. Looking ahead to Houston's schedule, they'll open up at home against Tennessee Tech and then head on the road for a tough one against Louisville. The second half of the Cougars' schedule is the most challenging, at UCF in late October, and then they play Vanderbilt, Cincinnati, and Memphis. Then close out the season at home against first-year member Navy, in a game that could have division championship implications out of the West. And to get the latest on what has been going on this spring in Houston, we have Matt Thomas from Houston SportsTalk 790 on the phone. That's up next. Welcome back. We're now joined on the phone by Matt Thomas, Houston SportsTalk 790, longtime Houston sports host. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today, Matt.
My pleasure. Looking forward to another great season, and I'm very excited about the first ever conference championship game, and I hope the Houston Cougars are a part of it. We are too.
All right, so Tom Herman's first year, he's talked a lot about culture change this spring. What have you seen so far?
Well, you know, Tom Herman, obviously tremendous pedigree with all the different places he's gone and been an assistant coach. And when you're at Ohio State working with a national championship and working with a very successful coach like Urban Meyer, it's infectious. And he's come down here. He's been very aggressive on the recruiting trail, very much speaking to the explosive offense that, frankly, the Cougars have missed the last couple of years, and how he thinks he can bring some of the things that he was able to implement in Columbus to Houston, Texas. But I've been so impressed with how tenacious he and, frankly, his staff have been to get down here and connect with these Houston high school coaches, because, hey, like, this is a tough part of the world to come to, because every coach in America, whether you're coaching at A&M or Texas or other places like within the conference like Cincinnati or Tulsa, they always feel like there's a piece of Texas, and notably Houston, that is their area to recruit kids. And I think Tom would like to keep as many Houston kids and as many Texas kids thinking about the University of Houston.
Yeah, he talked a lot about that when we were there in Houston, and you can definitely feel the energy there on campus. But Greg Ward, we watched him develop throughout the course of the season last year, and it's his first spring getting full-time reps at QB. He also has a coach who has an impressive resume with quarterbacks. How has he developed?
You know, the thing is, I think they want to develop him more to trust his arm. If you watch any of the games last year, you know, Greg is such a fantastic athlete. I mean, obviously started out as a quarterback, then became a receiver, and then came back to be the quarterback to finish up last year. He's got terrific athletic skills. He can run. He's elusive. He's got to learn to trust his arm a little bit, and I think part of that may be, you know, better offensive line protection. There'll be a new offensive line with a lot of graduating players, and then just maybe father time and experience. I thought if there was a criticism of him last year, it was thinking about running too quickly instead of allowing his receivers get downfield, escape past their defenders, and get some open routes going. And I think at times, Haley, if the first thing wasn't there, his first inclination was to run. And as you know, in college football, if you start thinking that every single time, you're probably going to get beat up by somebody at some point. So I would think pocket protection, presence, and maybe looking at second and third guys downfield will be a huge part of what Tom Herman can instill into Greg. And if Greg can't do it, there are guys behind him. Adam Schultz, the Utah transfer. There's a JC guy named Kyle Postman that's going to be in the mix as well. So there's a good safety valve with him that if ultimately Greg isn't the quarterback, he'll still be on the football field as a receiver. But I think Tom's going to give him every opportunity for him to be the signal caller.
And Houston's generally been known for their offense, but the past couple of seasons, the defense has really stuck out under David Gibbs. Change in the coaching staff, though, this year. What do you think the defense will look like this season?
You know, it's funny, the last couple of years they were known for turnovers, getting 1 or 2 per game, leading the country in total takeaways. And obviously, you want to have that as part of the arsenal, but sometimes it became too much of a note and too much of, well, let's go for that strip or let's go for an interception. And it unfortunately turned into some weaknesses and maybe some miscalculations and some guys jumping routes they shouldn't have. So I would say, frankly, an older group that's basically all coming back together that doesn't have that necessarily pressure to live up to that, well, we turn the ball over 2 times kind of thing per game. I think we put that in the back of their mind and just focus on being better and stronger and not allowing big plays. I think that's probably the number one thing that I think Cougar fans will appreciate is that, yeah, this team might not be able to grab 3 interceptions or 2 fumbles, and that's always been fun, but let's not give up the 40 and 50-yard plays. Let's hold on to leads in the second half. Let's get out to better starts and put our team in good field position on the offensive side.
Yeah, an exciting year for the American Athletic Conference now. The West Division, the East Division, a championship game at the end of it all. How does Houston match up against the rest of the West?
You know, that's an interesting question because, again, there's so many unknowns at this point. We talked about whether or not Greg Ward will be the starting quarterback. We'll try to figure out if a guy that was first-team all-conference going in, will DeMarcus Ayers be able to lead this group? There's a young man by the name of Chance Allen who is a Oregon transfer that's going to be able to step in right away. I want to see the explosiveness in the offense. 2 great running backs last year. One is coming back this year in Kenneth Farrell. I'll be very curious to see what he's able to do. Can he be the lead dog on this team? Because, yeah, the running tack was fun, but this team just didn't do a very good job of getting to the end zone. I will say this. Everybody was very excited about how things ended when the Cougars beat Pittsburgh to win the bowl game up in Fort Worth, but that coaching staff is gone and many of those players are gone. So there's a lot of uncertainty. It's going to be about how Greg can do offensively, and frankly, we're not so much worried about the Tulsas and the SMUs on this side of the bracket. It's more about going on the road and winning at Central Florida coming up later this year, and winning some key road games that I think will be interesting. It'll be a first trip ever to play the Connecticut Huskies in November up in your neck of the woods, and that'll be an experience for a lot of guys that are from the South. So interesting road trips. I'm not so much concerned about the West. It's just winning some games in league play against those Eastern foes that I think will really tell how good this team can be.
Are there any players that have stuck out to you this spring that fans should maybe keep an eye out for? Maybe a name we haven't heard before.
Well, I'll say this. Tyus Bowser is a young man that played really well for the team in 2013. Last year took a kind of a step back. He's now going to outside linebacker, and that should be something that I think will really, really suit him well. Freakishly strong athlete. He actually played basketball a little bit with the team the freshman year, didn't do so this past year. Todd Orlando is the new defensive coordinator coming from Utah State, very highly regarded. He's a guy that likes to put linebackers in the forefront. He's a guy that led Utah State in that defense at 49 sacks collectively. So I think with Bauer and his tremendous speed being an edge linebacker, he is a guy that I think going from end to linebacker is going to be the best thing for him. So my pick to click on the defensive side in 2015, beyond the good safety play of Adrian McDonald, the strong cornerback skills of William Jackson, is going to be Tyus Bauer in his new position.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye out for him. Thanks again for taking the time to talk to us today, Matt.
Anytime. Thanks a lot.
Again, Matt Thomas, Houston Sports Talk 790. Houston kicks off their season at home September 5th against Tennessee Tech. For the American Digital Network, I'm Haley Outen. Have a great day.